Welcome to ecolelo.com, our first chapter in microeconomics course, Introduction to Microeconomics, Lecture 1. I hope you have seen our introduction video before you are seeing this previewable course. Now this lecture is previewable, but the entire course, you need to pay. Why I suggest you to pay for the entire course is because it's very much in-depth course, and it's not just cream. In this course you're getting everything in detail, how much you really need to know. There are various videos that are available free on YouTube. I am not denying that. For example, there are many videos on production possibility curve, but why PPC is concave, and there are those small things, no? Those small things, those basics, that in-depth knowledge which will make you independent, that you really don't need a physical teacher. And this online platform would be enough for you. So if you want the entire in-depth knowledge of this particular course, I request you to enroll it. The creams are always there. All right. If you haven't yet taken your decision, you can see this lecture. You can also see the next lecture, which is again a part of Introduction to Microeconomics chapter. Otherwise, if you have bought this course, then all the chapters would be delivered to your email ID. Okay, let's go ahead. Now, what are the lecture keynotes of the lecture 1? We are going to define an economy first of all. Then we are going to understand what are the central problems of an economy. Every economy, whether it is a developed economy or an underdeveloped economy, every economy faces central problems. So we are going to see what those problems are. Next, we are going to understand PPC and MOC. I'm sure most of you know the full form of these. For those who aren't sure about it, PPC stands for Production Possibility Curve and MOC stands for Marginal Opportunity Cost. We are going to derive a relationship between them, and how we are going to derive a relationship using a schedule and a diagram. Next, we are going to understand the reasons for increasing marginal opportunity cost. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is define an economy. Now, in the words of A.J. Brown is a very famous economist. If you want, you can search it on Google. According to A.J. Brown, an economy is a system by which people get a living and satisfy their wants. So in an economy, people get a living, people earn for a living, and why do they do so? It's to satisfy their wants. Now, various economists have given various definitions of economics. It depends in which context you are talking. So you don't really need to learn all the definitions, but yes, a few famous ones you should learn. I mean, I advise you to learn it. Now, economics is a social science. What does it mean in basic sense? What does it mean in layman language? Suppose if I ask you, what is economics? Your answer would not be, oh, according to A.J. Brown, economics is this. Generally, it doesn't happen. So if somebody asks you what is economics, you give that person a general definition. And that general definition is this. Economics is a social science which studies the way a society chooses to use its limited resources, which have alternate uses, to produce goods and services and distribute them among different groups of people. Now, this may seem a lengthy definition, but it is not difficult at all if you break it into pieces. Now, first of all, it is a social science. And as social science, what does it do? It studies the way a society chooses to do what? To use its limited resources. So the second keyword is limited resources. And those resources have alternate uses. So this is the third keyword. For example, you have time. Time is a resource. Time is a limited resource. Now you choose how to use this limited resource, because that same time has alternate use. At the same time, you can do two things. You have a choice. You can do two things, right? So you make a choice how to utilize this limited resource. To do what? to produce goods and services and then distribute them among different groups of people. So as a whole society does this. I hope you get my point. Now, in the words of Leonard Robbins, he is another economist, economics is a science which studies human behavior. So economics is a science which studies human behavior. As what? As the relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. Now this is again related to use of resources that are scarce and that have alternate uses. But just to put it in different words. Now you can always learn it for your benefit. Generally speaking, what is economics? Generally speaking, it is about multiple wants and about scarce resources. We all know that our money is limited, capital is limited, resources basically if you define resources, you talk about land, labor, capital, enterprise, time, efforts, etc. etc. But these generally we talk about these four, right? Now these four are in limitation, are scarcity compared to the multiple wants. So from this fact, our basic definition is derived. Now, from this fact that we have multiple wants, we have never-ending wants. We want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Every day I want something else, something new. And because of these multiple wants, and because of the scarcity of resources, there arises an economic problem. Now, what is an economic problem? An economic problem is a problem of choice involving satisfaction of unlimited wants out of limited resources. And again, those resources have alternative uses. Now you need to understand this. This is the basic fundamental thing, that economic problem is a problem of choice. So economic problem arise because human wants are unlimited. One more thing, human wants reoccur. Resources to satisfy these wants are limited, and these scarce resources have alternative uses. Let me give you a situation. Suppose whatever you demand or whatever you want, you get it. You want an iPhone, you get it. You want something new every day, you want another iPhone the next day. You want MacBook, you want a lot of chocolates, you want a lot of books, you want a different laptop, you want house, you want everything, and you get it. Do you think there would be an economic problem? Do you even think that people would be poor? Or do you think that there would be need of government for that matter? If everything you want, you get it, do you think there would be any problem? No. So here we are talking about this because every want of yours cannot be fulfilled, and there are limited resources to satisfy those wants. There is an economic problem. Now let us discuss these economic problems one by one. First thing, human wants are unlimited and they reoccur. If I satisfy my want of food today, it is not that it's not going to reoccur. After a few hours, I'll again start feeling hungry. So I want the food again. It's not that if I have 3 or 4 or 5 dresses, I won't demand more. After a week, I want a new dress. But in comparison of these are limited. And that is why there is a term called scarcity that generates. Now, scarcity word is very important in economics. Resources are limited. Now you see, resource is anything which is capable of satisfying human want. But because your wants are unlimited, these resources are relatively limited. So scarcity of resources is the basic reason for existence of economic problems in all economies. Please understand this very carefully. It is because the scarcity that is causing. Let me give you an example related to travel destinations. Now, there are certain travel destinations where everybody is willing to go, which are very famous. For example, Goa in India. Anybody is ready to go to Goa. Similarly, Kerala, Kerala in India. Anybody is ready to go here anytime. Agree? Now, automatically, because there are so many people demanding to go to Kerala, automatically the land occupied by hotels becomes scarce. Why? Because, for example, if you have, let's say, 500 hotels and the people who are willing to go are 5 lakh. This is just an assumption to make you understand. So 500 hotels, but 5 lakh people are willing to go. So because of this unlimited want, this resource becomes limited. On the other hand, there is a destination, Spiti, it's in Himachal Pradesh, HP again in India. Not very people are willing to go here. So even if there are 500 hotels or house stays over here, still most of them remain unoccupied. So relative to the demand or relative to the want, this is not scarce. Okay, so scarcity is caused because of unlimited want and a limited resource, and this is what causes the economic problem, because then you have to choose. Then there's a problem of choice. Over here there is no problem of choice, because you go anytime to Spiti, you will get a room in any of the hotel, or you'll get a homestay. You don't have to worry. But in this case, you need to make a choice. So to conclude, I would say that scarcity is the root cause of any economic problem. I hope it's clear now. Let's go ahead. So we have discussed 3 points. Human wants are unlimited and they reoccur. We've talked about resources are limited, that are scarce. And the most important point, resources have alternate choices, alternate uses. Resources are not only scarce, but they also can be put to different uses. For example, LPG cylinder. LPG cylinder is used not only for cooking, but also for running cars, gas welding, etc. So this is an important limitation. Because you have an alternative use of the resource, that is why there is a problem of choice. And a problem of choice, as we discussed earlier, a problem of choice is an economic problem. Why does it arise? Because the resources are limited, human wants are unlimited, and the resources have alternate uses. I hope this topic is very much clear. Now there's a question for you. Scarcity and choice go hand in hand. Comment. Please note down this question. Write a paragraph on it. If you want, you can submit it to me personally and get it evaluated. We can have a discussion on it. Alright? Because it's a very important question even from the exam point of view. Let's move ahead. Now the work your brain is a question section. A few questions would come in front of you. You can always note them down, pause the video, note them down, get their answers evaluated, or if you can really give their answers right now, then that means that you have understood the concept very well. Do you think all resources are scarce? Just pause the video, think for a while, get back to the video. All resources may not be scarce. Now, if you have been paying full attention during this video, during this lecture till now, there was a section when I talked about this, if you could recall it. But let's talk about it again. For example, the air we breathe is in plenty for everyone on this planet. No one needs to pay for it. It is therefore called a free good or a non-economic good. The resources that are scarce in relation to the magnitude of wants attract a price and are also known as economic goods. Now you see, just before 1 or 2 minutes, we were discussing the example of the travel destinations. Now, if a particular destination is in high demand and you know that the hotels, and you know very well that it would be difficult to get a room in a good hotel, you would agree to pay a high price for a good hotel because you know that the room or the hotel is itself in scarcity in relation to the unlimited want. On the other hand, if there is a place where people do not prefer to go, or the demand for that travel destination is very low, you would not be willing to pay a very high price, or for that matter, you would not be willing to pay anything. You anything to stay in a hotel. You could just go have fun and come back. Okay, I hope you're getting it. So for anything that that is that so for anything that appears to be scarce, demands a or attracts a price, and that is why it is known as an economic good. Clear? Anything that does not attract a price, that is in abundance, that is available for free, there is no relative scarcity for it, you are not willing to pay for it, is therefore called a non-economic good. I should give you an example of the public parks. Most of us live in very good societies where we are privileged to have those parks. But are we willing to pay for those parks? No. Why? Because they are already available to us in abundance. Even if they do not exist, it wouldn't matter to us much. But for those people who are really willing to have a park nearby their house, would even be ready to pay a price for it. And when they pay a price for it, that thing becomes highly demandable for them. They want to use it because they've paid for it. So it's an economic good. Clear? Next question. This one is interesting. In what sense is water a free good and an economic good? I want you to pause the video, write down this question, write a very good answer for this question, then come back. Now, in what sense is water a free good? Water available in rivers, in sea water, ocean. Nobody is bothered about it. You don't want it. So because you don't want it, as in it's not for your daily life, because you don't want it, it's lying in abundance. You're not ready to pay for it. So it's a non-economic good. On the other hand, drinking water, clean water, because you want it, because you're demanding it, you're ready to pay a price for it. And because you're ready to pay a price for it, it becomes an economic good. I hope it's clear to you. Very simple. Now this is an activity. This is again a work your brain activity, but we are not going to discuss much on it. You can just note down these points and then always come back for an evaluation. List a few alternative uses for the following resources. So you can just pause the video and write down the alternative uses for the following. All right, next. Now let's discuss in detail what is an economic problem actually. Now what kind of problem does an economy face? These are called central problems of an economy. There are three basic problems: allocation of resources, fuller and efficient employment or utilization of resources, and third, growth of resources. These are the main central economic problems that every economy, whether it is developed, whether it is underdeveloped, every economy faces this. When we talk about allocation of resources, we mainly talk about three main questions. Number one, what to produce and in what quantity. Second, how to produce. And third, for whom to produce. So first one, what to produce and in what quantity. Now because there are unlimited wants and limited resources, so every economy has to face a choice, has to make a choice between whether to make a capital good or a consumer good, whether to produce a capital good or a consumer good. Now, okay, what is a capital good? A capital good is a tool, basically tools and equipments that are used to produce goods and services further. So to further produce goods and services. So these are the capital goods. So you have to make a choice that with the given resources, with the limited resources, what should you produce? Should you produce a capital good or a consumer good? You could also face a choice between whether to produce a luxury good or a necessity good. Suppose you have a resource pool, you have let's say 10 units of labor and you have around 1 lakh rupees. What are you going to do with these? Should you produce a luxury good or a necessity good? Now, both these questions depend on a lot of factors. What kind of people are there in your economy? What is the income level of the people in your economy? What is the age group? What is the gender, etc., etc. That we are not dealing as of now. What we're talking about is given the limited resources, every economy faces a choice whether to produce a luxury good or a necessity good or a capital good or consumer good. For example, should you produce a car or something like butter? Now, in advanced microeconomics, the problem of what to produce is studied under price theory. In this basic economics, in this basic microeconomics course, we don't deal with price theory, not because it is a limitation of this course, but it is the limitation of the level, right? So once you're thorough with this basic microeconomics level, then you move on to the advanced microeconomics. And I'm sure I'm going to produce a course on that as well. There we're going to talk about price theory in detail. Now, when you decide between what to produce, like if you have two choices and you are thinking you have to make a choice what to produce, capital or consumer, you need to keep one thing in mind. You need to allocate the resources in such a way, in such manner that gives maximum total satisfaction. So you cannot blindly take the decision of producing a luxury good, and you cannot blindly take a decision of giving more importance to the luxury good over the necessity good. You don't have to think, oh, cars are better than butter. You can't think that way, all right? You need to think, or you need to come to a conclusion that by producing this particular good, the total satisfaction in the economy would be maximum. Okay, now once you have made this decision of what to produce, then you have to decide how much of the quantity is to be produced. I hope you've understood this problem. Next, how to produce. Now, how to produce is the problem of technique. Generally, we are given two techniques, labor intensive and capital intensive. You have to decide between these two. Now, every economy should choose the most efficient technique of producing a commodity. In India, where labor is in abundance, labor-intensive technique should be used. Now, again, in higher microeconomics, the problem of choice of technique is studied under theory of production. Here, we are not going to touch it in detail, although we are going to study major part of the theory of production in this basic course itself. Now, when you're making a choice, you need to keep one thing in mind. You need to combine factors of production so that it gives maximum output at minimum cost using least possible scarce resources. So you already have scarce resources. You need to use these factors of production. You need to use these resources in such a way so that you get the maximum output at minimum cost. So you need to take care of the cost and the maximum output both. So choose your technique in such a way. Nothing like that one technique is better than the other. It's nothing like that. Although capital intensive technique has a low operating cost at high investment cost. On the other hand, labor intensive technique has low investment cost but high operating cost. So it's nothing like that one is better than the other. You need to see in which country or in which particular case. You also need to see in which particular industry that one technique may be better than the other. Okay, so third problem is for whom to produce. Now, when we talk about for whom to produce, we talk about the distribution of goods and services. Basically, the selection of category of people who will ultimately consume the goods. Now, we can talk about this in two ways. Although both the things mean the same thing, but yes, the language is a little bit different. So one is personal distribution and the other is functional distribution. Now the words may seem a little bit difficult, but the essence, but the logic, but the meaning is absolutely same. So please focus in this particular thing. Personal distribution means how national income is distributed amongst different groups of people. It basically talks about when you're producing something, with that product, you generate income. Now remember in economics, output created, output created leads to income generation. Clear? So therefore, in economics, output and income are interchangeable words. Whether you talk about output or you talk about income, it's one and the same thing because one is leading to the other. Whatever the output is produced in the economy is nothing but the income of the economy. Clear? Whatever the output is created is equal to the income generation. Clear? Now that's why we are talking about personal distribution here. How national income is distributed among different groups of people. Which category of people is getting more share of the national income? Which group of people is getting more? Second is the functional distribution. This means how national product is distributed amongst different factors of production. Now, factors of production basically means what? Land, labor, capital, enterprise, right? Now, how much of the work is done by these factors of production? How much of the output is produced by these different factors of production? For example, land that is put to produce agricultural product. How much of the share belongs to it? Land that is put to use to produce industrial products. How much is the share of that sector? How much of the national output is being produced, is being distributed in that industrial sector? Clear? It's very simple. If you're not getting it, don't really strain your mind. It's simple. It simply means, just look at this example, the idea would be clear. A computer engineer gets a higher income as compared to an unskilled construction worker who gets a lower income and hence gets a smaller share. So somebody like a computer engineer, you have decided to give him a higher income share. On the other hand, you have decided to give smaller share to the unskilled construction worker. So this is your decision because we are assuming that this is your economy. So you are producing in that way. You are producing more for the computer engineer and you're producing less for the construction worker. Okay. Now, in higher economics, the problem of distribution of national product is studied under the theory of distribution. But in this basic microeconomics course, we are not going to touch it. We are going to discuss about theory of distribution in advanced microeconomics. Now, yeah, one thing I forgot. Make sure that urgent wants of each factor are fulfilled to the maximum possible extent. You need to take care of each factor. You need to take care of the unskilled construction worker as well as the computer engineer. So their existing urgency of wants should be satisfied to the maximum level. Okay, work your brain. You can pause the video, note these down. Consider your household as an economy. So you live in a house and imagine that that entire house is an economy. Question 1. What does your household produce? You need to list down different activities, what your household produce. Then what are the production techniques used? In which case you use a labor-intensive technique and in which case you use a capital-intensive technique. You need to note that down. You also need to know, can the production techniques be altered? In other words, the same work which you were earlier doing using labor-intensive technique, is it possible for you to do it using capital-intensive technique? If yes, you need to list down how. And then lastly, for whom are these services or the goods produced? Okay. Do this, come back for the video. Okay, next concept, opportunity cost, a very important concept, something that I really love. Why? Because opportunity cost is something that we all face in our life. So see, why I love economics is not because that it tells us about the economy, wealth or finance or money. No, it is a problem of choice. And problem of choice is not just related to money, it's related to our life decisions as well. And opportunity cost is something very related to that. However, in this case, we are only going to talk in the terms of output or money, but yes, it is applicable to personal daily life as well. Now, it's about making decisions and it's about choosing. Now, let's look at the definition of the opportunity cost. It is defined as the cost of next best alternative opportunity foregone. The opportunity cost of any commodity is the amount of other good which has been given up in order to produce that commodity. Now, you're going to understand this through an example, then I'm going to tell you an easy way also to remember this. For example, Raza is working in a bank, he's working, and he gets 3 job offers. Now, as a bank executive, he's earning 30,000 rupees. Okay, sorry. So he's working in a bank and he gets 3 job offers. Let's assume for simplicity that he is a bank executive and he's earning 30,000 already. Now he faces a choice whether to join as a journalist somewhere and earn rupees 35,000 or join somewhere as a financial analyst in MNC and earn 28,000. And the third choice is to remain as a bank executive and earn 30,000. You tell me, what should be the best possible choice for him out of the 3? Journalist, this is the best choice for him or the best option. Now, in order to choose this, he needs to give up the job as a bank executive. In order to join as a journalist, he will have to sacrifice the next best alternative. Now, out of the bank executive financial analyst, which one is the best? Bank executives. So, in order to choose 35,000, he has to sacrifice the next best, that is 30,000. And that is what opportunity cost is. Now look again at the definition. Opportunity cost is defined as the cost of next best alternative opportunity foregone. So the opportunity cost of any commodity is the amount of other good which has been given up. So in this case, what is given up? Bank executive. What is the value? 30,000. So what is the opportunity cost of working as journalist for Raza? Rupees 30,000. I'm sure most of you must have guessed it. Now, to remember this, just remember that opportunity cost is equal to N BAS. What does N stands for? Next. What does B stand for? Best. A, alternative. S, sacrificed. Clear? So it is N BAS. What is opportunity cost? It's N BAS. Let's move ahead. Work your brain. What could be the possible opportunity cost for the following situations? Pause the video, come back. Students coming to tuition in the evening. So suppose you're studying this course and probably by assuming that the time in your city, in your country is 4 p.m. right now. So you're going to study this course for 1 hour, let's say 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. So this is like a tuition for you. What else you could have done in this time sphere, in this time gap, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. For example, you could have gone for some music or some sports activity. That would be the opportunity cost. Mrs. Davidson buying vegetable in the evening. So instead of buying these vegetables, she could have been watching TV at home. Students choosing the commerce stream in class 11. Instead of this, they could have chosen science. A stage actor acting in a movie. Now, he's a stage actor. So instead of acting in a movie, he could have done theater. A person depositing his savings in the bank. Instead of depositing your money in the bank, You could have invested it in shares or bonds, mutual funds, etc. Let's come to our main topic, production possibility curve. Initially, I'm going to tell you basic definitions. I'm going to talk about the terms related to PPC, and then I'm going to go to the main topic. When I say main topic, basically the derivation of PPC curve. Now, PPC refers to different combinations of two goods that an economy can produce when the fixed resources are fully and efficiently employed at a given level of technology. When you read this definition, most of the things appear vague to you. I'm sure they do. Now, I'm gonna break this definition for you, but as of now, it's 3 lines. It's a paragraph. But this paragraph is actually a combination of different assumptions. So there would be different keywords. We are going to study those keywords differently, separately. And then once we understand those assumptions, we are going to combine them and make this definition again. Clear? So as of now, just read this definition, or you can even pause the video and note it down. Next is PPF, Production Possibility Frontier. Now PPC and PPF, they are exactly same, but why we bring the concept of PPF? Frontier is what? Do you know the meaning of frontier? It is boundary, limitation. So why there is a boundary? Because the resources are limited. So whether you call it PPC or you call it PPF, it's one and the same thing. Now PPC is called PPF because it indicates the maximum limit of the two commodities that can be produced with given resources and given technology. So there's a maximum limit, there's a boundary. Apart from PPF, PPC can also be called as transformation curve. Why? Because as we move down the curve, good Y gets transformed to good X, and as we move up on the PPC, good X gets transformed to good Y because of limited resources. Now, as I said that in the initial section, we are going to talk about the definitions only. Most of it won't make sense to you as of now, but as we move on, as we understand what exactly is PPC, you're going to understand what does this mean. Why is it called transformation curve? You're going to understand it soon. Let's continue with the lecture. Okay, so here are the assumptions. Using these assumptions that are going to come up on your screen in a few minutes, you're going to make that definition, and I'm sure once you're thorough with the assumptions, you're going to make that definition by your own self. You really don't need to mug it up. Assumption number 1. Economy produces only two goods, X and Y. For simplicity, we are assuming that the economy has only two goods, X and Y. Now, there are reasons for it. Number 1 reason is that it becomes easy to compare two goods. The moment there is a third good or the fourth or the fifth category, the comparison becomes complex. Also, when we are going to draw the diagram would be two-dimensional. So the x-axis is going to use to represent good X, y-axis would be used to represent good Y. So to make this easy, we use only two goods. Resources available are fixed. Now, at a given time, you must remember this. Suppose we are talking about this year. Suppose we are talking about this month. So in this particular time, we assume that the given resources are fixed. Next, resources are fully employed. When we say fully and efficiently employed, it means that all the resources in your economy, all the land, all the labor, all the capital, all the entrepreneur, it is fully used. No one is idle. Okay, so we were talking about that resources are fully and efficiently employed, provided that the resource is capable of doing work. See, when we say resources are fully employed and efficiently employed, we are not talking about children, because children are not considered as able-bodied. When I say able-bodied, I mean those people who are able to work, who are in that category of work. Obviously, you're not going to see children as working. So majorly you talk about the working population. So when we say resources are fully employed and efficiently employed, we mean that all those who are able-bodied and willing to work are employed. When I say efficiently employed, it means you are working in some sector or you're working on something where you are able to give your 100%. Suppose I'm teaching you because I can do this work most efficiently. Suppose I start playing cricket. Now I don't even know how to play cricket. Suppose I start teaching cricket then. So I'm not efficient in that work because it is something new to me. I'm an amateur in that. However, in this case, in teaching, I am efficiently employed. So you need to consider that no one is lying idle. Secondly, whatever work the resource is doing, it is best suited for it. Next, the state of technology is constant. As I said, that we're talking about in a given time period, in a given year, or in a given month, or in a given day. So in that particular period, the state of technology, the level of technology is constant. Now this assumption I call the heart of the PPC concept. You need to take care of this assumption more specifically. All the other assumptions are equally important, but we are going to use this assumption when we are going to talk about the concept of PPC in detail. Resources are not equally efficient in production of both the goods. We'll understand this with an example. Suppose there is this person and there is another person. Now, both are teachers. Now, Mr. A and Mr. B, they can teach economics and accounts, right? The only difference is that Mr. A, although he can teach both economics and accounts, he teaches economics better way as compared to Mr. B. On the other hand, Mr. B can teach accounts better than Mr. A. So what we are trying to say here is it can happen that both the resources can do a particular job. So both the resources can do a particular job, for example, teaching. But it is always a case that a particular person is better in a particular job or a particular work, and the other person is better in a different work. Let me tell you a very basic example. Sometimes your school teacher gives you a school project. Now in that school project, you have a team of 4, let's say, and you have to perform that project. You need to submit that. Now 4 people, I am sure that you yourself can understand that 4 people and all these 4 have different capabilities. One might be good in a presentation, in a stage presentation. The another might be good in research work. Another might be good in the presentation. And this fellow can be good at, let's assume that this fellow is not good in anything. Okay, so all 4 are doing the same work, but one is better than the other in one particular field. This is what we are trying to say. So resources are not equally efficient in production of both the goods. So we are trying to assume here that, let's say, good A is economics and good B is accounts. So the same person is not equally efficient in production of both the goods. Now we're going to put all these assumptions and we're going to come back to that definition again. Now read this definition again. I hope that you have noted down those assumptions. Now see, all those assumptions except the last one would appear in this definition. So what is PPC? PPC refers to different combination of 2 goods. So 2 goods. Assumption 1, that an economy can produce when the fixed resources, assumption 2, are fully and efficiently employed at a given level of technology. Clear? So 5 assumptions are here.